Every day we get opinions and information from Americans, but surely people around the world have opinions on the things that matter to us, and because of that, we're now broadcasting worldwide. That's right, it's The Loop, Global Edition. All right, my guest tonight, all the way from Tokyo, Japan at almost 9 a.m., it's editor and owner of CheapAssGamer.com, David Abrams joins us. Across the pond at almost 1 a.m. in London, England, editor for Empire Magazine, Helen O'Hara is here. And here in Los Angeles, just before 5 p.m. or so, it's really not that bad, the shadow's coming in and representing the Americans, it's our very own Chris Gore. Welcome to the Global Loop, everybody. Let's start off with summer movies, because when Americans love or hate films, it doesn't necessarily translate around the globe. And Transformers, that's a franchise that got started in Japan, and it had its live-action theatrical debut this summer. David, you tell me, sir, was Transformers, was this the film that the Japanese fans wanted it to be?
Well, Kevin, it's got giant robots blowing stuff up, so obviously that's going to be a big hit in Japan and probably anywhere. Currently, it's getting beat out by Harry Potter and Ocean's 13. But you can't go wrong with giant robots. It's certainly clear.
I'm shocked that Ocean's 13 has taken down Transformers there in Japan. Was that a surprise, or was the hype on the street leaning that way?
George Clooney is very handsome, as is Brad Pitt. So I'm sure the Japanese women would much rather see them than Optimus Prime.
Internationally, dangerously good looks. Damn Clooney. I love him. All right. Now, most people consider this year to be the summer of the sequel. Helen, what film was a hit with the Brits this summer?
Well, it depends if you're talking commercially or critically. Commercially, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix was definitely #1 at the UK box office, at least so far. Critically, it's probably The Bourne Ultimatum, but that's only just come out here. And we also haven't had a couple of films that have been really well reviewed in the States, like Ratatouille and Once.
Very true. Chris, is there a film that's not out yet internationally that you think is going to do well?
I think the new Batman, Dark Knight, there were some pictures that leaked on the internet just recently, and it looks like it's going to be incredible.
How does something like Superbad translate, though? Is this something that we even see going international? I've heard Michael Cera talking about a European tour. Do you expect that to do well over there, Chris?
Yeah, Kevin Smith has quite a following in the UK, so Superbad is kind of, to me, it's definitely like a Kevin Smith movie with its vulgar humor, and, I don't know, vulgar humor does translate.
Right.
It is international. A fart, how do you translate that with subtitles? Still a fart.
You don't need to, any language. All right, let's go from the big screen to a much smaller, multi-touch sensitive screen. Let's talk about the iPhone. It's considered to be the biggest consumer electronic device of all time, but it still hasn't officially hit the shores of Europe or Asia yet. Helen, the iPhone's data service is slow, especially in comparison to other international phones. Is that going to stop a lot of Europeans from picking it up?
Honestly, I think it might. What I think also might affect it is its size. It's about twice the size of phones that pretty much have the same functions here already. And of course, it's pricier. The thing is, in its favour, of course, it's a work of art. It's absolutely gorgeous. So some people are going to want it anyway. There's no question about that. But I do think that its size and the fact that technologically it doesn't feel like a big advance for us is going to slow it down.
Very true. We're definitely style over substance here in the States. But, David, let's talk about the Japanese cell phone market. Typically, phones there are years more advanced than American models. So is the iPhone already looked at as an antique in Japan?
Absolutely not. The iPod is super popular here. It's definitely the music player of choice. So Japanese people are very interested in the iPhone. But like Helen said, we have the same problem here with the slow data speeds. Japanese people aren't going to go for a 2G device, and in fact, it won't even work here. So Apple's going to have to make some definite changes to the iPhone just to get it to work here. But once they get that out of the way, Japanese people will definitely eat it up.
Chris, what do you think? If you're Apple now, you can play Steve Jobs. We'll key in the turtleneck later. If you're Apple, you have this iPhone. Would you release it internationally to just kind of build the brand worldwide, or would you wait and listen to those concerns and maybe wait for like a second generation launch?
I would absolutely wait for the second generation. We're so behind when it comes to cell phone technology. It's an embarrassment, actually. In Japan, they've got cell phones that work in parking garages underground. Ours barely work in elevators, so it's ridiculous. I also personally have to say I'm not a fan of the iPhone. I didn't get, one of those pods that went next to my bed and turned to a pod. iPod person that loves the iPhone. In fact, I quite enjoy stink palming other people's iPhones, including yours, Kevin.
It's fine. I wipe the smudges away. It's so much makeup I can't even tell. David, what kind of cell phone are you using right now? Like, what features are important to you?
My cell phone is actually almost 2 years old. I bought it when I moved here. It's got a 3-megapixel camera, but like I said, that's 2 years old. The new version of my phone has a 5-megapixel camera.
Well, my iPhone doesn't have a
phones,
flash and barely works in direct sunlight. So I think I got you there, Dave. But we got to move it on. Let's go from phones to consoles. We're just about a month away from the release of Halo 3. Chris, you've got the Xbox-inspired T-shirt on right now. I mean, is there any way to describe the anticipation for this particular game in the States?
It's like the opening of a big movie. That's how highly anticipated it is, with 1 million pre-sold copies. I mean, that's unprecedented, and it's going to be like a big movie opening. If this were box office, what is that? Nearly $100 million in pre-sales. And I have one myself. I'll be waiting in line with everybody else. So everyone just cannot wait to get their hands on that game.
Well, of course, that's here in the U.S. Helen, have gamers fired up the hype machine in Europe yet?
Absolutely. One of my colleagues has actually booked 2 days off work for the day it comes out, so he can basically sit home and play it for 4 days straight over the weekend. It's coming out, I think, 1 day later here, and there's definitely buzz about it already building just everywhere you talk. I mean, that's what gamers are talking about at the moment. It's the one thing that's finally stopped people talking about how great the Wii is.
Now, the 360, though, over there in Europe, though, I mean, are we expecting units? Is there going to be a shortage? I mean, are there going to be lines of people buying Microsoft's latest console?
It's hard to say, actually. I mean, certainly when it came out, the rush was kind of muted, actually. Everyone was expecting there to be a big, a sellout situation, and there kind of wasn't at first. I think that might happen again this time. I think it's going to be focused on the game for those who already have it, because it has been taken up reasonably well here already, but then it's going to be how it goes next.
All right, David, I wanted to get to you. I wanted to hear about the 360 in Japan. I know it's not taken off that well. Can you give me a yes or no? Is Halo going to push consoles? Is it going to actually move the system?
No way. I mean, only a Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest exclusive is going to sell 360s.
I thought that was going to be the answer. I'm sorry we're out of time, but I want to thank my guests, David, Helen, and Chris, for joining us. Thank you guys for keeping us in the loop.
Attack of the Show, weeknights at 7, only on G4.